Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, as many of you know, one of the reasons that I love recording this podcast every single day is exploring areas that you don't always associate with technology and look at how they're being transformed by it. But I also enjoy making you and myself think differently about technology that you thought you knew all about. For example, if I was to say to you, what does Roku mean to you? I imagine there was just thousands of people shouting into their devices, streaming stick or TV streaming app. But did you know that Roku also works with 90% of the Ad Age top 200 advertisers, and their ad clientele continues to diversify as they continue to work with a wider range of advertisers? So I wanted to learn more about how video ads remain the backbone of Roku's ad business and the kind of technology that they're using and their opinion on the world of AdTech, and how they're continuing to innovate new ad capabilities and formats and are always working to level up the ad experience, not just for the marketers, but for the users too. So today I've invited Louqman Parampath, VP of Product Management, onto the podcast. And Louqman leads product management around ad products at Roku, where he's responsible for building new capabilities on the Roku platform. And he also has a rich history in tech too. I think prior to joining Roku, Louqman held product management roles at Axiom, Yahoo, Earthlink, and many more. And he also has 15 years in product and engineering roles. But it's that recent focus on the world of AdTech, digital media and data analytics that I want to explore today. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to California, where Louqman is waiting to speak with us about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Louqman. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for the invitation to the show. For your listeners, my name is Louqman Parampath, and I lead the advertising product team at Roku, which means I'm responsible for the team, technology, and platform that powers advertising on Roku. Roku, as some of your listeners may know, makes streaming devices and also licenses our operating system to many TV OEMs, such as TCL, Hisense, Sharp, and others. So our revenue comes from these device sales, but increasingly, we also make money monetizing our consumer base, including through advertising. And these, when I say advertising, these are ads that typically come in the form of promotions you see on our home screen for new content from a new channel such as Hulu or Disney Plus or NBC Peacock, or some of the video advertising you see inside channels such as Roku's own The Roku channel on the Roku platform. Typically, there is quite a bit of engineering that happens under the hood to ensure we are showing the right ads to our consumers, and to make it not just eye-catching and interesting, but also to keep consumer choices and preferences in mind. So that is what my team and I spend most of our time on.
And streaming has absolutely exploded over the last 12 months when everybody's been in shelter in place or lockdown, depending on where they're listening in the world. And I, for one, have had a Roku device, and I suspect that many people listening all over the world would have one too. But a question I've got to ask you before we dive in a little bit deeper in the kind of work that you're doing is, where did your love of technology come from? And how did that path lead you to Roku and everything that you're doing today?
But first of all, great to hear that you have a Roku. One of our goals is to actually, kind of make Roku, available everywhere in every country in the world, and so on and so forth. But I'll get to that later, probably in this conversation. So yeah, it's a good question about technology and how I ended up where I am right now. Right, I was a bit of an academically oriented kid from school. Loved solving problems, math, some of those nerdy subjects. Not much of a tinkerer of tech and gadgets per se, but liked, video games, software, and later on I liked coding and so on. So from an education perspective, I ended up doing an undergrad in engineering before moving to the US. And then initially, interestingly worked as worked as an engineer for a company where my focus was on writing algorithms to improve audio quality for internet phones, as we used to call it voice over IP software then, internet phones. This was much before you had, broadband everywhere, and internet calling was riddled with bad audio quality. I'm sure some of your listeners would remember that. It is much, much better now, as you can hopefully experience from this particular call that we are having. Learned a ton there, and then moved on to a job that had me responsible for monetizing websites, and making sure, the websites have a way to profitability. And the primary way you do that on the internet for free websites is through advertising. And that is how I started learning about the technology that goes into a lot of digital advertising today. What goes into ad serving, and you may have heard terms like programmatic, and what are the data and algorithms and the overall underlying tech stack that powers so much of advertising in the internet today. It's a very, very complicated problem, and there are very, very smart engineers working on it, right? So it brought me to that realm of technology. And when Roku was building out the ad team a few years ago, had the good fortune of landing a job here. And it's been 6 years now that I've been here at Roku.
Love that. And for most people listening, they will think of streaming devices when they do think of Roku. But can you tell me a little bit more about, in 2020, you introduced OneView, which I believe is an ad buying platform built for TV streaming. So can you tell me a little bit more about that and the inspiration behind the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Roku is a very consumer-centric company.
Yeah.
And our belief is that all TV will be streamed. Okay. And the company is thinking all the time on how to improve the streaming experience. Great UX that is simple, that anyone can use. Uncluttered remotes. If you've looked at our remote, it is probably one of the simplest remote to use. Even my grandmother can use it. Easy to find content, new content all the time, right? So TV is ultimately a fully lean back experience. And we believe our mission, our jobs is to just make that experience as great as possible. And we bring that same mindset when we build tools for our advertisers. We offer advertisers an easy to use end-to-end platform to buy advertising on Roku. And OneView came from that. OneView is what is called as a demand side platform, a DSP in industry parlance. And it was rebranded as OneView after we acquired a company called DataZoo in late 2019. And what this tool does is, this tool allows advertisers to buy video advertising on Roku in a programmatic and automated manner. Our primary goal with OneView is to meet advertisers on how they want to buy media from us, with tools and tech that makes the buying and management of advertising a seamless experience. OneView provides the data and scale across the entire TV landscape, so marketers can plan, buy, and measure TV advertising, and ultimately, hopefully, we think would shift more and more of their spent TV budgets to streaming. One thing we often tell marketers is we have the ability in the US to reach 4 in 5 homes with better accuracy. And now, with almost 1 year since we rebranded our DSP as OneView, spending on OTT impressions or connected TV impressions through OneView has more than doubled. And at the same time, while spending on impressions delivered across the Roku platform on OneView has more than quadrupled, 4x. So we are really excited to continue to introduce our clients, our advertiser clients, to OneView.
And a few moments ago, I spoke about how over the last 12 months, TV streaming and video streaming and even game streaming have all completely exploded over the last 12 months. And we've all heard those stories and very familiar with that. But something that we don't hear and don't talk about much is how COVID impacted the TV and ad industry. Is that something you can expand on just to set the scene?
Yeah, we do. We talk about it quite a bit, actually. Yeah. And ready to, and would love to talk more about it. I mean, it's been a tough 12, 14 months for all of us, right? We've learned new ways of living, and hopefully we are at a point where we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel here, right? So fingers crossed on getting past this phase in our lives. Yeah, the pandemic, from a TV ad industry perspective, the pandemic broke the TV dam, effectively, so to speak, in 2020, leading to wide open floodgates to streaming in 2021. What we're seeing is acceleration of longer-term shifts that were already well underway. The pandemic supercharged the secular shift from traditional TV to TV streaming that was underway, as I said, but driving more consumers to cut the cord to save money and in turn spend less time watching traditional linear TV. The way we say it is traditional cable hooks are no longer enough to retain viewers. If you look at this year's big game, it had the lowest TV rating since 2007, but was the most live streamed American football contest. And when sports returned, after a pandemic-induced hiatus sometime late last year, we saw that users did not return to cable, but rather watched by streaming. And when it comes to marketers, advertisers, the pandemic also showed the importance of right-sizing dollars towards TV streaming. A quote we often use to advertisers is, "You should be buying TV like you watch TV."
And we will have people listening all over the world, some in the advertising industry and fascinated by the world of AdTech, and others will, much of the concepts we're discussing today might be a little bit new to them. So can you tell me a little bit more about the importance of first-party data in advertising right now?
Yeah. And when you refer to first-party data, you're typically referring to data that you get directly from the consumer as a publisher, as a website, like Roku has first-party data from our own consumers, which the consumer typically gives to you. That's the definition of first-party data. So just want to level set there. And typically the goal in digital advertising is to get a household or an individual reliably. Otherwise, both publishers and advertisers are left guessing about performance. When what they really want to understand is the precision and accuracy of their investment. Remember the old quote about not knowing which 50% of your advertising works, though you think 50% of it actually does work. So that's what first-party data helps with in kind of capturing the performance and accuracy of your advertising. One other point I'll quickly talk about is, if you've listened to news in the trade press, in the AdTech trade, in the AdTech trades and in the AdTech industry, one of the trends is deprecation of what is called as third-party cookies and mobile identifiers. These are identifiers historically used in the industry for targeting and measuring ads across multiple publishers, multiple websites, so to speak. And generally, we are moving in the direction of a more user consent-driven landscape. So what that means is a publisher's or marketer's data that they have on their consumer directly from the consumer will be more and more important, because it'll get harder to share data without a common way of identifying the same data set across multiple publishers or between a publisher and an advertiser. And increasingly, this data, it is paramount that we as an industry collect this data with user consent and preferences in mind. At Roku, since we have had a direct relationship with the consumer, we've been able to bridge that gap. We've always, every Roku user on the platform is a logged in user. And we are very clear about how data is used within the Roku ecosystem, whether it is to recommend a favorite piece of content or whether it is to actually promote a particular product. And also, we can accurately measure and optimize these campaigns for advertisers because we know our users very well.
And I'm curious, how do you think streaming is uniquely positioned to help advertisers reach these goals that we're talking about today?
So Neil, streaming or connected TV is uniquely positioned in the sense that it is the only media that can be effective across the marketing funnel. And when I say the marketing funnel, is basically everything that drives all kinds of marketing that drives brand awareness to consideration of a product, to ultimately purchase of that product from a consumer. So if you're a traditional TV advertiser, with advertising on TV, your primary goals are branding and to improve awareness of your product. While if you are a display buyer, if you're buying display advertising ads that you see on websites or on the internet by and large, typically your goals are more performance oriented, which means you're trying to drive conversions of purchase. Streaming by the very nature of the media, can cater to both. Because it brings the big screen branding potential of TV, full screen, sight, sound, and motion with the unique targeting and measurement of digital. So at Roku, we have built ad products that offer, brand lift and to reach users you don't reach on traditional TV, on CTV, to attract TV dollars or TV advertisers, and to attract more performance-centered digital advertisers. We have focused on better targeting, enhanced optimization of their advertising, better ways to measure performance, whether it is driving users to their websites, whether it is driving users to an advertiser's store, or ultimately purchasing from their store. So we have invested in ways in which we can actually provide return of investment, provide that their ad spend on Roku is actually driving incremental return of investment.
And for many people listening outside of the industry who just like to enjoy streaming their favourite shows, etc., the idea of ads in streaming services could be a big turn-off. So can you expand on how you see the future of programmatic in streaming and how actually streaming is changing that ad funnel?
Yeah, streaming is changing the ad funnel. Like I said, in many ways, streaming can meet all the parts of the ad funnel, whether it is upper funnel metrics like brand awareness or the lower funnel metrics like conversions or purchases, right? I mean, to answer your first question first, we don't necessarily think that consumers don't want to watch ads. What is more important is they prefer an ad experience that is reasonable and relevant to them, and it's also a fair value exchange for free or discounted content. If you look at users on the Roku platform, there is a large number of users coming to streaming who are interested in free content. And as long as the ad experience is reasonable and relevant, they are willing to partake in that value exchange. So in that respect, we use our direct relationship to the user to create these better ad experiences by showing you something, showing you a promotion for a product that you're actually interested in. On top of that, streaming unlocks many new ad formats for marketers to bring to users. It can go beyond traditional 50-second and 30-second spots and can have what we call streaming first native formats that could provide a more engaging ad experience for the user. One example is branded content. For instance, a study we commissioned recently with Magna and IPG Media Labs, big agencies, revealed that brand experiences alongside video advertising generate, multiple X, 4X, 5X greater purchase intent than video advertising alone.
And what does streaming offer in terms of, let's say, measurement and performance analytics? Because again, that is something that's incredibly important in the industry, isn't it?
That's true. I mean, digital marketers are already familiar. Digital marketers who actually advertise on display and social are already familiar with performance marketing in terms of the results that it can actually drive. Right? They are very, very. Some of them are called direct response marketers who are very, very focused on driving purchases, conversions, visits to their website, and so on and so forth. Right? So they know the technology and the algorithms and oftentimes the machine learning and AI that goes into driving the best responses out of their advertisers. And however, but as these digital marketers are looking to expand those channels, streaming offers these marketers these same attribution tools, these same performance tools, and also the opportunity to drive streamers to take a measurable next step after they see an ad. So going back to what I said earlier, right? Combining the precision and reach with the visual of a digital platform with the visual beauty of TV, streaming offers the best of both worlds, right? So together with TV streaming, social retargeting campaigns, different ways in which we can reach our users can run together to create a customer journey from screen to screen that can drive good experiences for the consumer, but also the best results for the advertiser.
And I think I should also highlight that Roku does work with 90% of the Ad Age top 200 advertisers, and your ad clientele continues to diversify and now also includes a much wider range of advertisers. But I'm curious, do you have any use cases or client stories that you could possibly share that would just bring to life everything that we've talked about today?
Sure. I mean, we are always looking at ways to provide stronger case studies with data and analytics for our customers and for our advertisers, right? We do want to prove the value of spending your advertising dollars on Roku, and we have large analytics and data science teams that are continuously looking at proving that value. I'll give you some examples here. In June 2020, we announced with Kroger, the country's largest supermarket chain, to launch a first to market OTT or connected TV integration for Kroger. And we call this a shopper data program. And what this did was the new shopper data program effectively provided household level purchase information, in-store purchase information to help consumer packaged good marketers to make better media buying decisions, right? So CPG products like, let's say, baby foods or Pampers and so on, if you're promoting those kind of products, it helps those advertisers to make a better media buying decisions. So a couple of examples here is, Campbell's Snack Snyder of Hanover found that Roku users who saw their advertising spent 5 times more on the brand's products than the average Kroger shopper. Wow. Than the average person who's shopping at Kroger, leading to a 250% return on advertising spent. Another example is a direct-to-consumer brand, a new direct-to-consumer brand, Home Chef, which is an at-home meal kit provider, was interested in proving out how streaming advertising drives in-store sales. So the meal kit company had run streaming ads previously, but had never been able to track results at this level before. But using targeting and Kroger's shopper data, Home Chef was able to reach lapsed brand buyers and in-market shoppers to accurately track in-store sales. And overall, the streaming ad drove 20+% sales lift among new buyers. These are some examples of performance marketing and how it works very well on connected TV. Even for brand marketing, finding users that traditionally you would hope to get through your linear TV advertising spend. I can give you an example. Lexus and its agency, it's called Team One, sought to build mass awareness and reach in-market luxury car buyers. And they typically wanted to get to consumers who would not see the ad on linear TV. So by capitalizing on streaming and our capabilities, and looking at the campaigns that they ran on Roku, we were able to prove to them that 75% of audiences exposed to the experience on Roku never saw the ad on linear. So these are true incremental users that they would not be able to reach, they would not be able to promote their luxury cars to through their traditional way of putting ads on linear traditional TV.
Wow, that's fascinating, the difference between the two worlds there. And as we continue to look at the road ahead, is there anything else that you'd like to share about what tech trends might excite you or just the road ahead at Roku?
I mean, for me personally, new tech trends that excite me, I think Internet of Things is really big. The fact that every household device, cars, washing machines, bulbs, refrigerators can be internet connected, controlled from your phone anywhere and ready to go is truly, truly personally exciting. The opportunities that line up are huge, and it will invariably continue to alter our way of life. At Roku, I'm going to think more broadly, our primary focus will continue to be on the user experience and creating a great entertainment vehicle for our users. The TV landscape is changing massively, and we believe we are still in the very early phase of it. One of our key goals in the next few years is to actually make a lot more progress on getting our TVs, getting our devices available internationally, like I said in the earlier part of the conversation, and take our products to all of these new markets. We do believe that this year is just the start of the streaming decade, and want to expand as broadly as we can throughout this decade.
That's a perfect moment to wrap things up today. But before I do let you go, for anyone listening that would like to find out more information on anything that we've talked about today, including the platform there, OneView, what's the best way of doing that? And also contacting your team if they've got any additional questions.
The best way for anyone to connect with our team is on our dedicated website. It is advertising.roku.com. If you just go there, there is a lot of information about OneView, about Roku's advertising products, and information on how to contact us.
Well, I always say technology works best when it brings people together. And one of the things that I was reading about OneView before you came on the podcast today was it reaches the most cord cutters of any platform and brings identity and viewing data from America's #1 streaming platform. Incredibly cool, the work you're doing there. I'm interested in where it leads. So I'd love to get you on later in the year and maybe get a bit of an update from you. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to sit down and share that with me today.
Thank you again, Neil, for inviting me. This is a great conversation.
Cannot thank Louqman enough for coming on the podcast today and sharing the background on Roku's ad business growth and, of course, OneView, Roku's ad platform built for TV streaming. Not to mention the impact of COVID and what that had on the TV and ad industry, the importance of first-party data in advertising, and how streaming is uniquely positioned to help advertisers reach their goals, and what that means for the future. But over to you, whether you're a marketer or a user of Roku's products, I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything that we discussed today. Anything you agree with, anything you disagree with, that is what this podcast is all about. So please share your insights, experiences, opinions and questions by simply emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You can message me on social, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram @NeilCHughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. But all this talk of TV streaming makes me want to put my feet up and have a look for something to binge. So I'm going to walk away now for a little R&R, but I will report back tomorrow with another guest. Don't worry, you're not getting rid of me that easily. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.